Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled People Story. Hey there, everyone. I'm writing this story from Canada, where I was born and raised and have lived all my life. I have been lucky enough in life to have a well-paying sales job, a beautiful wife, and two beautiful twin daughters. My family is everything to me, which is why I strive to provide for them in every way I can, financially, emotionally, and by making their lives joyful and meaningful. For my twin daughters, sometimes this means providing something different. One of my twin daughters has been disabled since a young age. We have made modifications in our house to make it more easily accessible for her. Just because she's a younger child, my twins are 10, with a condition doesn't mean she can't do things or have fun. For example, you know those playgrounds that a lot of families have in their backyard? Well, we have one, but it is customized for my daughter. Both of our daughters play on it, and it's great to see my other daughter supporting her sister with the condition. It makes her feel like she's normal. Part of the playground is a cute little treehouse that is easily accessible for my daughters. You would think that a special treehouse wouldn't be a big deal, but I guess I should mention at this point that we live in a homeowners association. I know, we should have known better, right? But I will admit, our homeowners association was actually pretty nice. They were very in touch with the neighborhood, and we knew some of the board members personally. They were all friendly, and if we ever had a violation, usually they would talk to us before giving us a fine and even give us options on how we could comply. This all changed when we got a new homeowners association president. We'll call her Karen. I think her name was actually Sam, but she definitely acted more like a Karen. It's even stranger because she didn't even live in our neighborhood. They literally voted her in from the outside. I thought this was odd, but this is also the first and only homeowners association I've ever dealt with, so who am I to doubt it? Well, I had the right to doubt Karen as soon as she questioned the treehouse. As soon as she got voted in, she started doing random inspections herself. I thought it was odd because she was inspecting every house in the neighborhood. She did have a few board members with her, but still. Anyways, one day she showed up at our house randomly, and the inspection seemed to be going fine, besides the fact she said we had the wrong kind of wood chips in our garden, until she saw the treehouse. She immediately stormed over to the house and started criticizing it, asking why it was so big and how ugly it was. Even if my daughter wasn't disabled, this is very offensive. Why is an adult criticizing a child's treehouse so harshly? She asked us why it was so big, and we tried explaining that it was specially built for our disabled daughter. And it's not like she could say we were lying. Our daughter was literally sitting on the porch. Whenever we tried to give her an explanation, though, she just kept interrupting us and saying how it needed to go or we would be fined. We spent a lot of money to have it custom built for my daughter, and while I am never one to feel entitled, I feel that it was fair she had a treehouse just like every other child did. Yeah, it was a little bigger, but it's not like it was in anyone's way. It is in our backyard. Apparently Karen was serious. We didn't take the treehouse down because, well, why would we? Karen didn't stop, though. She sent us multiple notices in the mail and even posted a letter on our door stating that we had to remove it or else they would remove it themselves. She even sent us multiple letters in the mail stating that we owed $10,000 for breaking the homeowners association rules. Obviously we didn't want this, but I wasn't sure what to do. Well, I guess it wasn't too long until I didn't have to ponder too long on what to do. Because one afternoon when I got home from work, I noticed that the special treehouse was completely trashed. When I say trashed, I mean trashed. It looked like it had been hit with something. It was missing support beams and had scuff marks all over the painted metal parts. We lived in a nice neighborhood, so my immediate thought was that homeowners association. Karen had something to do with this. I didn't have any security cameras, so I couldn't prove it. But who else would trash a playground for a disabled kid? It seemed too odd to me that she had a problem with it. Even after we explained that it wasn't just any playground, it was a special one for our daughter. Well, anyways, we filed a police report for vandalism, but we didn't know who did it. I mean, technically we didn't, but we couldn't prove it. So the police said they would keep an eye out and let us know if they saw anything or found anything out. But they didn't have to do that because just 2 days later, our neighbor caught Karen trying to drive some sort of small tractor digger, I don't work in construction, into our backyard. I'm assuming it was to remove our playground. What else would she have it for? I wasn't home, but of course the neighbor called me, and I was on my way in no time. He also called the cops, and apparently several neighbors came out to block Karen from trying to run away. Luckily, when I got there, the cops had just arrived. Our neighbors provided witness statements, and they were able to prove that Karen was trying to break into our backyard with the digger. I guess the pressure was too much for Karen because she admitted to trashing it the first time because we were crappy residents who thought we were special. Karen ended up pleading guilty, which helped her somewhat, but she did end up having to pay to replace the custom playground. We ended up pressing charges against her for violating the Accessible Canada Act, in which she was found guilty. In the end, Karen got 1 year in jail, had to replace our playground, and pay us $10,000. By the way, we used that money to upgrade the treehouse and make it even bigger. Duck you, Karen. Even though she obviously got kicked out of the Homeowners Association. I will say the Homeowners Association is actually back to being nice now. The next one is a pro-revenge story. Pre-children, PC. My wife and I purchased our first house. We were very excited to be homeowners. We were particularly proud to show off all of our gardening and yard skills we had developed over the years of childhood chores. Don't tell Mom, but who knew that the seemingly punishing yard work would actually translate to adulthood? We were off to a great start with a meticulous yard, spending way too much time and money. On my small suburban lot is the utility box for one of the 2 cable choices in the neighborhood, along with EE Cable Corp, you know, the one Forbes always lists as one of the worst companies in the country. I came home from work one day and noticed that the utility box was open and the cables were scattered all over. I didn't think too much of it at the time and made a mental note, assuming they were on a break. The next day, I came home from work and the utility box was still a mess. I called the Evil Empire Cable Company to kindly let them know that they had left a mess in my yard after a repair. They told me nicely that they would be out in the neighborhood the following day to finish the work. Many weeks came and went without them fixing their mess. It was coming up on our first pool party, and we wanted the house to be perfect. I called the EE Cable Corp again, not to bore you with the details of the conversation, but it ended rudely with them saying they would be out there eventually. Now I see why nobody likes this Evil Empire Cable Company. At our first PC pool party, maybe after a margarita or 4, we started aimlessly discussing the Evil Empire Cable Corp. Now we were a bunch of engineers and a truck driver, important later, drinking margaritas. The discussion turned from complaining to scheming. While poking around the utility box and the box on the side of my house, we noticed that EE Cable Corp did not use multiple line blocks on the cable. They merely hooked up the cable from the house to the utility box. Easy peasy, nice and easy. I'm guessing the lack of security is a genuine artifact of Midwest nice. Why protect something that nobody steals? We also noticed that only 1 house out of the 8 was serviced with cable, so we proceeded to hook up free cable to the 7 remaining houses. We neatly stuffed all the wires and closed the utility box. As I mentioned, the only non-engineer in the group was a truck driver. We had an earlier pointless discussion about different padlocks and why truck drivers use a specific round kind. Basically, it's impossible to break with small bolt cutters. He grabbed a large round padlock out of his truck, and we tried to place it on the utility box. It wouldn't fit because the hole was too small, so after a few seconds of drilling, we placed our own padlock on the EE Cable Corp's utility box, along with providing 7 houses with free cable protected by an industrial padlock designed to prevent trucker theft. After meeting the other neighbors and making sure they were trustworthy, I let them know about our party. Each one smiled and began enjoying free cable. A number of months later, while enjoying free cable, the EE Cable Corp was in the backyard staring at our handiwork. They bent over regularly, really studying the padlock. I could only imagine their discussion on what they were seeing. They brought out the bolt cutters from the truck. I assumed they carried them in case they lost a key or the padlock rusted. Now looking at the bolt cutters, I could tell this would be a futile exercise. After only about 3 minutes, they both shrugged their shoulders, got back in their truck, and left. That was the last time we ever saw the EE Cable Company. Since all but one of us was enjoying free cable, there was no reason for them to be out there. Our gig was up when the one who did pay for cable, whom we never really met, moved. The next technician was very dedicated. After 3 trips, each with a larger bolt cutter, resulting in using one more than 4 feet long, they put everything back to the way it was before. And thus concludes the story of 7 houses enjoying free cable for more than 4 years, due to the laziness of a single technician and a rude customer service rep. The next one is a petty revenge story. I stopped at one of those candy stores inside malls that you always see, with tons of bins full of random candy and bags that you can fill up yourself using tongs, where you get charged a crazy price by the pound. During this visit, they seemed to be running a special. Next to the bags used for filling up candy, there was a sign saying free cups to store your candy. So instead of opting for the bag, I chose to use the cup, knowing that they would still weigh it and charge accordingly. When I reached the counter and they weighed the candy, the total appeared on the register. However, I had to question it because the price seemed to be about double what I was expecting. I asked about the weight of the candy and requested a breakdown of the pricing. The two clerks behind the register looked irritated that I had to question them, but reluctantly provided me with the weight. They also mentioned that they charged me several dollars for the cheap plastic cup that was supposed to be free. "Aren't those cups supposed to be free?" I asked. "No, they are not free, they're $4, they replied. "But there's a big sign saying free cups," I pointed out. "No, there isn't," they insisted. I walked over and pointed to the sign that clearly said free. "Oh, we used to have free cups, but we ran out, so we put jars there instead," they explained. "Isn't that a bit misleading?" I questioned. "No, because these are jars," they responded. "Wouldn't it be fair to assume that someone looking at a sign that says free cups and sees a plastic container next to it would think it's a cup?" I countered. "No, because it's not a cup," they argued. "There is nothing else around the sign, only the containers and a sign that says free," I pointed out. They didn't respond. I was getting nowhere. "Fine, I'll just dump the candy in a bag and you can keep the jar," I said frustratedly. "No, you can't do that because you already touched the jar and we can't sell it to someone else now," they said smugly, expecting my defeat. But then I remembered that they hadn't taken my credit card yet. "Okay then, just keep the candy too. Bye," I declared. They realized that they would now have to throw out both the candy and the jar that I had touched, and the smirks they were trying to hide quickly turned into scowls. I could feel their daggers staring at me as I walked out. The next one is an entitled people story. Since the family intervention, my parents have kept my brother in check, and they are doing okay in terms of making up for years of treating me like crap. They've even promised to host my next birthday and have my favorite cake with my name on it. My brother overheard this because my parents had him doing dishes in the kitchen, and he just stopped what he was doing and went right to his room. No fake crying, just a complete shutdown. He still glares at me from his window every time I leave when I come to visit. A little while ago, my parents allowed my brother some privileges for good behavior, though to my brother, they're basically the opposite of anything he'd like. My parents decided to let him have a little fun for good behavior. So my dad dug out his old N64 and Game Boy Color from the 90s. He still had most of his old games for both systems, and also had an old CRT TV to hook them up to. When they offered them to my brother, he just complained that they were old and boring. My dad just said he could suit himself then and go back to reading. It took one night before my brother was begging to have the old 90s game systems. He used to have many game systems, a gaming PC, and even a gaming chair with Bluetooth speakers on it. Now all he has is a folding chair or his bed to sit on when gaming. I came by for a visit around the time he first got the N64, because my parents wanted to have me over for dinner, and I got to see my brother in his room yelling at the old CRT TV while playing Mario 64. He really wasn't happy, especially since he couldn't even go online to check for guides, walkthroughs, or cheat codes. For the Game Boy Color, I saw he had some Pokemon games and at least one Donkey Kong. My dad has said that if my brother is extra good by the end of the summer, they'll upgrade him to a Game Boy Advance. My parents quickly realized, though, that the Game Boy Color would eat AA batteries, so my brother has to use a power cord for it now. And he does play it, maybe because he used to have a phone in his hands playing app games so much. Because my brother likes cycling but no longer owns a bike since our parents sold it, he was without an outlet to exercise. My dad found a used exercise bike on FB Marketplace and put it in my brother's room. He also got a used CD player mini boombox from somewhere the same day. So yeah, my brother just rides that exercise bike since he can't go outside unless it's to do chores. And he rides it aggressively. He tunes into whatever music gets him going and then he rides that exercise bike hard. From the look on his face, I'd call it hate riding. Almost like what you'd expect to see on the face of a vindictive prison inmate exercising in their cell and waiting for the day they can get out and get revenge. I had mentioned this to my parents, and they have the same worries that I do. So my dad started burning CDs with my brother's favorite music that used to be on his gaming computer that they also sold. Each burned CD has 10 songs, and he would get one for every week of good behavior. He's only gotten one so far since this started, not because of bad behavior, but because not enough time has gone by for him to get more. I'm not sure if I'd call my brother's behavior good. He's just not really being bad. I don't hear him complaining out loud anymore most of the time, but I see it on his face, especially when he glares at me from his window when I get on my mini bike to go home. He definitely resents me, but it's not the same look he gives our parents when they aren't looking. He glares at them like they destroyed his life. But if I were to put it into words, he glares at me with envy, like I have everything he wants. The look just seems to say, just wait till I'm 18. I remember having those same thoughts when I wanted to move the hell out after high school, but I made sure I had life plans with the help of my aunt when I moved out. But my brother doesn't know anything about how to do that, so he's probably still thinking of it in the simplest ways a kid usually would. Oh, great. Now I'm sounding like a know-it-all. I have tried to talk with my brother, but he doesn't have much to say. I've been stopping by every few days to spend some time with him. We don't speak much because he's gotten very quiet, but he does seem to enjoy having someone to play with since our parents won't. He eagerly hands me a controller every time I'm there. We've mostly been playing racing games like Mario Kart on Dad's old N64 in my brother's room, and he gets pretty aggressive while playing. He keeps swinging the controller around wildly with nearly every move he makes, and has even shoved me over a few times when he was losing. I've learned to brace my legs so he can't do that. He had a few light tantrums for losing, but he is getting a little better. I've had some Game FAQs walkthroughs and cheat codes for some of the games he's been playing on the old N64 printed out at the local library and put them in a binder for him, and that's made him be a little nicer to me. Our parents wanted to get some stuff for summer homeschooling for my brother, but I warned them that was probably not a good idea. He's already in an almost constant state of anger, and the goal is to mellow him out and make him more accepting that life won't go his way like it used to anymore, not piss him off even more. My dad got angry with me about how he's the father and not me, and that sparked an argument where I reminded him of the things that went on over the past decade. All of the favoritism, all of how I was blamed for so much, even how I had to hide my money at my aunt's house because they kept letting my brother try to steal it. I didn't outright say he's a bad parent, but it was heavily implied. He backed off, and my mom told him I was right, and trying to force homeschooling on my brother will not help. That made my dad shut down, and he went to drink alone in the living room. My mom has apologized to me repeatedly for her past actions. She says she blames herself because it was her idea to coddle my brother so much, and my dad just went along with it. She told me that back then she was never thinking ahead to what my brother would be like as an adult. She basically refused to admit he was going to grow up, so she just kept spoiling him to try and keep him here as a baby. My parents have scheduled couples counseling, but it's going to be a while before they get in due to the wait period. My dad is pretty obviously not looking forward to it. It's harder to make him admit wrongdoing than my mom. He caved and admitted how much he'd screwed up during the family intervention. But since then, he's tried to act like he's just a normal parent. But I've made it clear that pretending that crap didn't happen won't make it go away, and my mom agrees with me. So that's where things are right now. Hopefully my next update will be better. The next one is an entitled parent story. This is what happened last night. EM, entitled Mom, who's my aunt, EC, her daughter, and S, my sister. EM called my dad last night at about 11 when my dad was half asleep. EM, how could you do this to us? Aren't we family? Why did you shame us like this? It was so many years ago. Couldn't you just let it go? My dad had no idea what she was going on about, so he asked her what had happened. She told him that we had posted on Reddit about my sister's birthday. My dad didn't know or care what Reddit was and asked, "What's the big deal?" EM, wow, so your daughters do things without telling you? You should keep an eye on them. Don't let them get out of hand. You should have taught them manners. My name just exposed us and shamed us online. Dad, what are you saying? How did she expose you? She hasn't even talked to you in years. EM, she posted a story about us, and as soon as EC read it, we knew it was about us. I haven't divulged any names in that story, not even mine. Dad asked me if I did that and why, so it took a total of 15, 20 minutes to explain to Dad what Reddit is and what I did. I told him that I had just narrated a story and hadn't exposed her identity in any way, so Dad just handed me the phone so I could explain it to her. As soon as I said hello, EM started screaming at me so loudly that it could be heard outside the phone. EM, you idiot! How could you do that? Who do you think you are? You poisoned my child and then made it up as if I was overreacting? Take that post down now and apologize for it on that subreddit. If you don't, I'm going to sue you. I was so angry that I just said no, I won't do anything of that sort. And that I would love to see how you can sue me all the way from California. EM then proceeded to call me and my sister whores and similar things. My dad took away the phone and asked her to never contact any of us again and blocked her. So hey there, Aunt Sheila. I hope you all read this. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.